expansion to Star Wars Rebellion Rise of the Empire, which adds a lot of Rogue One flavor to the game. So if you needed more Rogue One in your life, this is probably something worth looking into. But besides Rogue One, let's take a look at what else comes in this box. Get a whole bunch of new units, which include a bunch of stuff from Rogue One, like U-Wings, TIE Strikers, the little cargo tanks that drive around on Jodo, some guys with rocket launchers. We also get some interdictors that have shown up in Rebels and have been in Legends lore for a long time. Some of the turrets that you see on Hoth and other Rebel bases, the Nebulon B, frigates, a lot of new objective cards for the Rebels, a lot of new mission cards for both the Rebels and the Empire, new project cards for the Empire, new action cards which you can use to recruit your new leaders, most of which are from Rogue One except for Jabba and Admiral Mahdi. You got new dice. All of these units and all the new leaders use the dice, which we'll talk about later. And you get to new reference cards so you understand how your units behave in combat. And most importantly, we have a new way of doing combat, which is the advanced tactic cards, which we'll get to in just a second, and a few little tokens that come into play, like some new rings. Jabba could put a bounty on you, or you could have K2 with you. So that's the contents. Let's see how they all work and if they make a big difference or not. If you like Rebellion, the combat system overhaul for the new expansion, which the relievingly short new rulebook calls cinematic combat, is probably the biggest reason you want to pay attention to this expansion. So we're going to look at that first because I think it's probably the most important part of this expansion, since the combat system from the base game was seen by some people as kind of the weak point of an otherwise amazing game. The original combat, or the original tactic cards from the base game, those are just gone. Throw them away, tear them up, you're never going to need them again if you get this expansion. Instead, each team, so the Rebels and the Empire, each get their own deck of full-size tactic cards. They're called advanced tactic cards, I guess, so you can differentiate between the old ones that you're never going to want to think about again. So before each round of combat, each player is going to pick one card from their deck. You can pick any one. You don't have to shuffle it. It's not random. You just pick a card, and they both put them face down and reveal them at the same time. So if you're in space, you both pick your space tactic card. If you're on the ground, you pick a ground tactic card. And then you resolve their effect, starting with the player whose turn it is. And each card has two different effects. One effect you can only trigger if you have the matching unit in the system. So for example, if I had a ATST in the system, I could say cancel or deal 2 damage. If I didn't have an ATST in the system, I could still use this card, but it would only deal 1 damage. Once you've played a tactics card, it goes into a discard pile, and you can't use it again until you've gone through all of your tactics cards. Which means you might have an idea of what your opponent has available to work with, which gives you an edge in battle. Some of the old cards that instruct you to draw tactics cards let you pull them back out of your discard pile. So if I've got one left but I can draw a card, I can pull one back. And once they're all gone, you can start all over. One of the really cool things about this is those abilities that are specific to the units. It really makes those units feel like they can bring a lot more to the table than just rolling certain dice. Because now, maybe I'm trying to defend the Rebel base on Hoth, and I see all the walkers coming. I can bring my Snowspeeder with their tow cables, because the Snowspeeder's special tactics card lets them deal 4 damage to an ATST or an AT-AT. Other changes in combats, now that the old tactics cards are out, these little numbers on the leaders, their tactics values, well, what are they for now? They actually let you re-roll dice, which is really satisfying. So if Darth Vader, for example, would let me re-roll 2 dice in space and 3 dice on the ground, because a lot of times you'll roll blanks, and you want to be able to re-roll that. It's honestly really satisfying being able to actually re-roll dice in combat now. So that's the new combat system. It's simple. It works really well. I really like it. I really like how each unit has a little bit more of a unique role in combat now. Even the things like the shield bunkers and the shield generators and the ion cans, they all have special cards that can come into play if you have them in combat. But none of the cards are worthless because they all have a second ability that you can use if you don't have that unit in play. It's just slightly weaker. Rise of the Empire also comes with a bunch of new units. All of the new units roll the green die, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. But most of them are just kind of analogs of existing units that maybe have a different color health. For example, the assault tank is basically a stormtrooper but with red health instead, and it rolls a green die instead of a black die. The TIE Striker is basically a TIE fighter that rolls a green die. The Interdictor is one of the more interesting ones because the Interdictor rolls 2 green dice, and the cool thing about the Interdictor is if you have it in a system in combat, the rebels can't retreat, because that's kind of the whole deal with the Interdictor is it's got gravity wells. It prevents people from jumping to hyperspace. So if you have one of these guys floating around, there's no escape for the rebels, and they've got to fight it out until they kill the Interdictor. So it's probably going to be your primary target. Another new unit that has some special abilities is the shield bunker for the Empire. You can put a shield bunker in any system that has Imperial troops. So I could put it in a remote system like Endor. And if you have a shield bunker there, it basically makes your Death Star impervious to anything. The rebels cannot hurt your Death Star if you have a shield bunker. So they've got to send in a strike team, take out the shield bunker, and then they can blow up the Death Star. It also lets you deploy troops to a system that has it. So normally you can't deploy to remote systems, but if you have a shield bunker there, you can. To get 8 new leaders, which is Jin and Krennic, Jabba, Chirrut, Saw Gerrera, Cassian, and some Death Troopers, which are called Krennic's Finest. In all of these new leaders, besides from most of them being from Rogue One, except for Jabba and, and Mahdi, he's new too. They all have a little symbol for their skills, which are called minor skills, and that works the same way except they have to roll a green die when attempting a mission for those skills instead of a regular die. Let's talk about the green dice, because on the one hand, they're new dice, and I am a sucker for dice, especially custom dice in Star Wars games. But these dice have 2 crits on them and 4 blanks. The greens are kind of unreliable, which it makes the greens not very scary. In combat, it's kind of the same way. All of the new units roll these green dice, although in combat it helps more because a lot of the tactics cards specifically refer to red and black damage, and these are green, so they're basically immune to being hit. And that since it's only crits, you can hit any kind of unit, so these are a lot more versatile than the existing attack dice, but they're only going to hit 2 out of 6 times. So they're very swingy, but they are a little bit more versatile in combat. The box also includes a lot of new mission cards for both the Empire and the Rebellion. So there's a lot of new things to discover as you find out how you can affect the galaxy as you try and save it or suppress it. One of the new project cards is called Single Reactor Ignition. So now, before you could blow up a whole planet with a Death Star. Now, maybe if you want to be a little bit more environmentally friendly, you can just wipe out all the troops on the ground. So we are going to see what does Krennic want to do? I wonder what does what sort of thing might Krennic be interested in?
Death Star test. Oh,
let's bring the laser online. Oh, we need a statement, not a manifesto. So we're going to do a single reactor ignition, resolve in any system that contains a Death Star. Krennic can hop over there. You have to reveal the base if it is in this system. Then destroy all rebel ground units in this system.
Wow. And just poof, gone, huh?
Oh, it's beautiful.
Another new leader card called Make an Example. It's got a picture of the Sarlacc pit on it. You can attempt it against a captured leader in a remote system. If you succeed, they're just gone. So essentially you're taking them out, a backwater planet, chucking them in the Sarlacc pit. So now if you want, you could actually have Jabba throw Luke Skywalker in the Sarlacc pit and have it turn out that way for once. Another example of something that's very kind of Rogue One-like is the Secure the Plans card. It actually has Krennic's face on it, so he's especially good at this mission. You take one of these new target markers that matches the art on the card, put it in a remote system, and now as long as that marker is there, the rebels can't play their Death Star Plans card until they go over here, kill all the troops on the ground, that marker goes away, then they can. So essentially it's like saying, we've got the Death Star Plans locked up on this remote planet. The rebels have to come to this planet, kill everybody on the ground, and get the Death Star Plans, which is, pretty much like what happens in Rogue One. Well, that is a quick look at everything that comes in this expansion and how it changes the game. Why Jabba? This is something that's kind of bugs me a little bit. I mean, we already had Boba Fett in this game, which makes more sense to me. Boba Fett would be working for the Empire. Now Jabba is working with the Empire, which feels kind of weird to me. I really wish we would have just gotten Grand Admiral Thrawn instead. I feel like he would have been a much better fit than Jabba. We do get that card that lets you throw people into the Sarlacc pit, which is cool, but Jabba feels like an odd fit. Okay, now big question, was this expansion even necessary at all? If you would have asked me this before I'd actually played it, I would have said no. I thought Rebellion was a pretty self-contained game, didn't need any tweaking or adding to it, because maybe adding to it would make it more complex, but nothing in this game makes the game more complex, doesn't make it any longer than it already is, doesn't add to the length of the game, just gives you a few more choices and considerations to make, as well as just new ways to explore and affect the galaxy and work against your opponent. So if you haven't played much Rebellion, I think the combat change and maybe just getting the Rogue One people on the table is probably going to be the biggest draw. If you have played a lot of Rebellion, the combat systems overhaul still is going to be the most exciting thing, but you're also going to be able to look forward to discovering new cards. If you're familiar with most of the cards in the base game, there's a lot of real fun ones that you'll be able to start discovering all over again. The cinematic combat rules are definitely the star of this expansion. The green dice aren't... I just... That's how I feel about the green dice. They're just kind of whatever. It does add a new wrinkle into combat and missions, and I think they work how they need to work. They just don't work in a way that's like super exciting. But they also don't work in a way that's super disappointing, so that's how it is with the green dice. Thanks for watching this review. Big thanks to Fantasy Flight for sending us the review early so we could get our hands on it and let you all know what we think of it. If you like this review, good. I'm not going to ask you to subscribe.